I see that we are live. Let me press. Super excited to be live here on Twitch. There we go. We welcome everybody to the chat. And we want you, if you're here on chat, go ahead and tell us where you're from. I know we had some people from not in Utah who were planning on attending, at least on the meetup. So go ahead, tell us where you're from, so that we can get to know you a little bit. I'm Mariah. I run this meetup. We haven't had it for a few months. I got a little busy doing the Go West conference back in October, and then the holidays hit, and I just kind of got lazy. And now we're back, and we're really excited to get these up again and start having these monthly. We're super excited that is it Colleen or Colleen? I didn't ask you how to pronounce your name. I should have.
Sure. Colleen.
Colleen.
Yeah.
DelVecchio.
Yep.
Here perfect. With us today to talk about. Her talk is called Career Right Now, and she was telling me how she's been working with people as a career coach and as a consultant for years, helping them kind of just become better at their jobs and just a better influencer or interactor or person around when you're interacting with other people. So I want to just real quickly remind everyone we will have a Google Meet after this video chat. The link should be on the meetup page, Meetup Women Who Go Utah. And so please come hang out after that. I believe Colleen will be there. You can say things, you can talk to me, and we can get to know each other face to face. But without further ado, I will jump off and give Colleen the screen, and we will go from there.
Great. All right. I am going to share. Let's see. Share my screen for all of you. And let's get the slideshow started. All right. I am excited to be here tonight. Thanks you all so much for joining me. So I am Colleen DelVecchio. I am a career coach. I'm a keynote speaker. I do StrengthsFinder coaching. I do corporate training and a whole bunch of other things that I've kind of put together to kind of layer my career for myself. When I am sharing my PowerPoint, I cannot see your chat very well. So if you have a question, feel free to type it into the chat, and Mariah, maybe you can just interrupt me and let me know what questions people have.
I would be super happy to interrupt you with questions. I'll just pop up on the screen, and you should be able, if you can't see me, I'll just wait for a pause and jump in.
Perfect. Sounds great. All right, so let's jump in. So tonight we're going to talk about what's really important to you in your current job, your next job, and really figure out, right, how do you get the right career for you at this moment in time? So as we start to talk about this, you know, I want to look at this kind of diagram up here, right? So people constantly post this on Instagram and Facebook and things like that, right? That you have this Venn diagram of something your perfect career is something you love to do, you have the skills to do it, and it makes you money, right? It makes you the money you need to live. And that somewhere in the middle of that is your ideal career. But there's something missing from this. And this is where kind of I go a little bit rogue from all the career counselors that are out there. Because to me, it's a really big piece that's missing from this. And what's missing from it is that it fits with your life right now. So what do I mean by this? You know, as you grow and change and you do different things and you're go through kind of different phases of life, The same career that you had in your 20s may not be the career that works for you in your 40s or 50s, right? So, thinking about that, you have to take a step back every once in a while and think, is this the right career for me right now? Am I in the right spot right at this point in time? Now, it could be that you're on the right career path, but you're just working for the wrong place. It could be that you've decided, you know what, my career makes absolutely no sense for me at this point in time, and you need to change it. And things that you love to do and have the skills to do may not make you the money you want at this time, right? So ideally, that little piece is where we want to end up. And that's hard because, as you can even see on this diagram, right, that middle piece is pretty darn small. And nobody teaches this, and nobody gets out there and tells you how to do that. So we're going to talk a little bit tonight on how to do that. And this way you'll kind of have some ideas on how you can do it for yourself moving forward. So this is kind of my trajectory. And this is where some of this came to my mind. And when I was doing the kind of going through my career stages and my life stages, these four that are up here, right? This was not something that was purposeful. But as I look back and think about my career, it was really obvious to me that here is where I kind of ended up. So when I look at the beginning, the things on the left, right? I was a student at Boston University. I was single, and a full-time student. Great. Right. Now, then I stayed in Boston. I ended up getting married and I was working for a bunch of different nonprofits. Perfect. Then all of a sudden, right, we decide to move to the Springfield, Massachusetts area. It's about 2 hours west of Boston. Because I was having a baby, and now I got a job at a hospital because the nonprofit I worked at had me flying all over the country and occasionally internationally on a regular basis. And all of a sudden, that didn't quite work for me when I had a baby at home. I didn't want to be flying all over. I was teaching people all over the country and, like I said, a little bit all over the world on how to teach other people on how to find careers. So, after my daughter was born, didn't work. So switched careers, started working at a hospital, ran the volunteer program there, ran the residency and internship program. It was great. Well, then I ended up getting divorced. Now I moved to the Pioneer Valley, about a half hour away from where I was, ended up getting remarried, have now a daughter and a stepdaughter who are the same age, and start working in higher education and start to build my consulting business and my private coaching business. And looking back at the time, I wasn't specifically making some of these career changes because I thought, oh, this doesn't fit with my life, and that all of these things weren't fitting. But now that I look back on it, right, as these different parts of my life were changing, that's when my career needed to change because the career didn't work for me at that time. So the first thing I usually tell people when they start to decide what they need to figure out in their career is this thing called the Wheel of Life. You can Google it. There's a whole bunch of different ones out there. This is one that I like to put up. Right. So pretty much you draw a circle for yourself, you break it into 8 pieces of pie, and you start to look at what are the different areas of your life and kind of how do you feel about those at this moment. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute so we can kind of talk about this a little bit more. Right. So you have those 8 different areas of your life. And when I look at those, oops, sorry, my screen is doing weird things. There we go. So when I look at those different areas of my life, I suppose you want to kind of rank them and say, how do you feel about them right now? The ones on this one, right? It's finance, personal growth, health, family, relationships, social life, attitude, and career. Now, like I said, if you Google this, you can find a whole bunch of different versions of this. And why do I do this when I first start working with people? It's because our careers are not separate from the rest of our life, right? It's all intertwined. And right, you can't be, if you're miserable in your career, you're probably not going to be too excited about the rest of your life, right? We can't kind of turn things on that quickly, right? It's a little bit hard for folks to have a miserable day at work, walk in the door at night, and all of a sudden be like, huh, everything's great. So I always say to folks, let's make sure that we look at this and balance it. And some of these areas really have direct um, relationships and really kind of very obvious kind of connections to your career. So when I think of things like finance, right? How you are able to look at money and deal with money does have a direct relationship on your career. How much money you're making, how much money you're able to save, even things like health insurance, right, has a direct impact on your finance. So these are pieces that are really important in your career. And when you start thinking about those and kind of looking at this wheel of life for yourself and seeing kind of all these different areas that may or may not kind of be working for you, then you can start to look at a career and think, okay, I need to find a career that's going to fit with the rest of these areas for me. So when we look at finance, let's say you're having a hard time, kind of living in the house that you want because you're not making enough money. Well, then it's time to let's look for a job that might either have more money. When I look at some of the areas on that wheel of life of things like social life, maybe your work is getting in the way of your social life, right? You're working so much that you're not getting the chance to kind of connect with other people socially. So that is the case. Kind of take that into consideration as you start to look for a new job. Now, that's really important. The other piece with the wheel of life, I would say, is date it, put it aside, and put a note in your calendar to go back and look at it, 2 months from now. Because quite often when I start working with people around kind of looking for a new job or a new career, what ends up happening is we start to fix some of those other areas in life, and all of a sudden the career works again. Or vice versa, right? You fix the career and now those other areas start to work again. Right? You're able to have better kind of social life or better relationships with friends and family because you're in a career that's working for you. Right. And remember that, right? Venn diagram, right? We're looking for a career that you love to do, or at least you like to do, right? You have the skills to do it. It makes you enough money to live, and it fits with your life right now. The fits with your life right now is so important. So always start off when you're thinking about possibly changing careers is checking in with the wheel of life. This is something I do regularly for myself, right? Once a quarter, once every 3 or 4 months. It's a kind of a nice little tool to just check in with yourself. And like I said, you can make whichever ones you want. You can change all of those pieces. So the next piece I always throw out is, why do you work? So for those of you who are alive with me now, right, plop in the chat, why do you work? What are some of the reasons why you work? Why do you go to work every day? So, right, so somebody just said they like to challenge themselves. Yeah, when I first throw this out there to people, somebody else came up with, let's see, I want to solve hard problems. It makes you feel productive, right? Money. Thank you. Because I was going to say, many people will say to me, right, why do I work? Well, why do you think I work, right? I need a paycheck. I need health insurance. I'm not independently wealthy, haven't won Powerball yet. So it is important, right, to think about, why do you work? And if you took money out of the equation, what are some of the other reasons why you go? Right? Somebody just said, 2 people said they like owning a house. Um, so those things are really important. So when you think of that, I want you to start thinking about, what if we took money out of the equation? Why else do you work? What are the things that you actually enjoy doing at work? When we're in person for events like this, one of the exercises I love to do is called the 5 whys. And um, if any of you are familiar with this, right, it's kind of a tactic people use all the time where somebody, asks a question, right? This one is, why do you work? And when you answer it, the person asks you again, why? Right? So if we look at this, and I look at these kind of 5 whys right now for why do you work, I'll give myself as an example, right? If you ask me, why do I work? My first answer is, right, I need money to support myself and my family. Great. Why? Because I've always been a big contributor to our finances. Those 2. Ask me, go to why again? Well, I have 2 daughters to send to college at the same time. Now it's a year away, right? Now we're up to 4. Why? Well, I don't want my daughters to have to take out substantial student loans. My last why? Because my parents paid for college and I don't want to burden my kids with loans. Okay. So when I come down to why do I work, I start with I want to support myself, but I ended with, right, I don't want my kids to have to take out loans for college. I want to be able to pay for it for them. So, right, are there many other whys that I work? Probably. If I did this exercise 5 different times, I might come up with some other reasons why I am working. But think about that question and kind of going at the 5 whys, asking why 5 times to the same question, and see how far you go and figure out some of the whys.
Would it be okay if I went ahead and did that on the chat on the stream? Do my 5?
Sure, I can do it live with you if you want to chat
Yeah, let's
through it.
do that. And then anybody else can put it in the chat, but we'll do mine.
All right. So, Mariah, why do you work?
First one, I like my paycheck.
Okay.
But you said no money. You said no money, but like
that's okay.
Yeah.
No, for this one, you can say you like your paycheck. Okay,
I like
so
my paycheck.
So why do you like your paycheck?
I honestly, I like to buy nice things for my dogs and myself and my dogs.
So, why do you like to buy nice things for your dogs?
I really like playing with them, and I like playing with the toys. I'd rather they not bite me. I'd rather us have something in between. So we'll play frisbee, or we do tug of war a lot, stuff like that.
All right. So why do you like playing with your dogs?
Oh, they're emotional support animals. Really, that's the best way for me to relax is to go get my dogs. We'll go for a walk. We'll go to the park, go outside, play fetch, or just snuggling. It just is. That's immediately the decompression from everything.
Right. So there's your last one, right? We started with why do you work, and we ended with your dogs are your support animals that help decompress you, right? And so you're pretty much working to support your dogs.
Yes, I have a framed thing that says I work so my dogs can have a better life.
Look at that, right? And the reason I always do this with folks is, one, because it's really important to really think about what are some of your whys for working? What are the things that are really important to you? Because if you asked me, I mean, my girls, like I said, they're juniors in high school right now. So we're really thinking about college. But if you asked me 10 years ago when these girls were 6, why I worked, getting them through college was not top of mind for me. I would have had different answers at that time. So this is why I always say to folks, you have to look for the right career for you at this moment in time, because the right career for you this year may not be the same as the right career for you in 5 or 10 years. So really start to think about what are some of the whys of why you are working. So the next thing that's important to think about is what's really most important to you. So I mean in life in general, right? Because careers are this one part of our lives. And it's really important that we figure out some of these pieces that you want in your career. And how we start with that is what's most important to you in the rest of your life. So if you take me, right, and I think of some of the things that are most important to me in life. So, right, one is my family, right? My husband, 2 teenage kids, and my beagle, right? Most important to me. Other things that are really important to me in life. Flexibility, right? Really important to me to have kind of that time flexibility. Next thing that's really important to me in kind of life in general and my career is taking something good and making it great. if anybody's familiar with the Clifton StrengthsFinder assessment, which is one of my absolute favorite assessments, I'm a really big fan of using Clifton StrengthsFinder. And if you don't know about it, I'm happy to chat about with you offline another time. But one thing that one of my top strengths from Clifton StrengthsFinder is something called maximizer, right? That idea that you want to maximize things. So you want to take things that are good and make it great. So that's really important to me in my work. Next thing that's really important to me, I want to make decisions that have an impact. I want to help people. I want to make things better for people in this world. And so I like to do work that impacts people and makes people have something better in their lives than they had before. And then the last thing that's really important to me is travel. I love to travel. I love to make memories. I love traveling with my kids and my husband. I love traveling for work. I love traveling on my own, right? It's really important to me to travel. And so, right, this past year has been a little bit disheartening for me, and I've had to learn some other ways to keep myself sane in that way, because travel is really important to me. So when I step back to look at what I'm going to want in a job and a career right now, I need a job that, right, will allow me to have that time that I can focus on my family, has flexibility, that I can take things that are good and make them great, that I can make decisions that have an impact and that allow me to travel. And so that's why 2 years ago, I went off on my own full time. I'd always had a side business of kind of coaching and consulting, but quit my full time job. And now I do this full time because I absolutely love it. It allows me to do all of those things. It allows me to figure out time. It allows me to kind of figure out that time to have with my family. It allows me to travel more. It allows me to make decisions. Okay, so somebody put in the chat, whenever I do the 5 whys exercise, I feel like I always come back to, so I don't end up impoverished in the street. And how do you make it more productive? That is a great question. Whoever is typing that, I would love, can we do this why with you right now? So I'm going to start with the first why for the person who just typed that in, right? So what is your first why for, right? Why do you work?
So there is probably like a 20-second delay. So we might need to have some, I will be here to encourage that. But yeah, Snurg the Destroyer.
Yes. So there you go. Okay.
Yeah, he's ready. Okay.
All right.
First why? Is that where we're at?
First why. Why do you work, Snurg the Destroyer? Right. And, for many people, like I said, sometimes that first one feels really obvious. Sometimes they feel like they're really reaching as they get further in. All right. Get money, and to a lesser degree, find enjoyment. Okay. So why do you want money? Right? Why do you want money?
That was mine. Mine was money. And so then she asked me why.
Yep.
So now you're under pressure on the hot seat.
You're on the hot seat of why do you want money? Right. And I get that it's right, sometimes really obvious why you want money, but sometimes it's taking it to this level, right? Because obviously we all want money to live, but how we all want to live is also really different, right? For me, my get money right now is about putting my kids through college. All right. So you want to live comfortably, travel, and support your family. All right. So why? What's important to you about living comfortably, traveling, and supporting your family? Because I'm a wimp and I like a warm house and going other places and meeting new people. Okay. So I'm going to jump on the second half of that. So why do you like going other places and meeting new people?
I don't think that liking a warm house is being a wimp. I think that you just want to be comfortable. Like,
Absolutely.
if
And
you're
you live in
comfortable
Utah.
or
It
whatever.
could be cold there, right?
Yeah.
Not like you're living in the tropics. So why do you like to go other places and meet new people? This is always a kind of a fun exercise to do in many different ways too. Like I find when I need to brainstorm something, this 5 whys is a really good um, exercise.
Takes you outside of the box.
It does. One of the things I've done it with is on what is the last item you bought and kind of going down the whys of what is the last item you bought. So that is another fun way to use the 5 whys.
Okay, Snurg, we're still waiting on why you want to meet new people and go other places.
Right. And sometimes this is hard. Sometimes these answers aren't easy, particularly when we are, putting you on the hot seat here.
I don't
Because
know.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs changes in perspective. Nice. All right, here's your last one. Why? Why do you need a change? Why do you like a change in perspective?
I don't know what Maslow's hierarchy of needs are, but I do understand the change of perspective. I'll have to Google that.
Yes. Psych 101, College Psych 101, Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
I was a physics major. I didn't need it. No,
Oh,
it's not
yeah. No.
The delay is not your fault, Snurg. It's a byproduct of streaming. We just fill the dead space and move on.
Yep. It's like I feel like we're radio DJs like back in the day, right? You weren't allowed to have more than 3 seconds of dead air.
Yeah.
So, right, Snur gets your last one, right? Why? Why do you feel like you need a change in perspective? Which I have to say I love. I don't know I've heard that before.
And at least you want to get a change of perspective from traveling, not standing on your head. That would be uncomfortable.
Life is short and exciting to see new stuff, right? So there you go. There's your why for working. Your why for working is life is short and you want to see new stuff, right? So that sounds a little bit more positive or a lot more positive to me than, you don't want to end up impoverished on the street. So, right, here you go. Life is short. You want to see new stuff. If you said that to me and we were doing career coaching, I would be like, we need to find you a job that allows you the ability to travel, like either for work or gives you enough vacation time and money that allows you to travel, right? Because either one, if you're looking to change perspective and see new stuff, either one could work, right? And depending on who you are, who knows which one, right, you'll prefer. But I agree 100%, right? Life is short. It is exciting to see new stuff. When my kids were elementary school, the job I had did have a lot of travel, probably once or twice a month. And I would always try to figure out ways to take them with me, right? And either find a babysitter where I was, or if it was going to a place that I had a relative or a friend to watch them when I had to work, but then that they could get that change of perspective. So there you go. There's your why. And how you use this, totally up to you, right? But I would say this is where, right, you take a step back and look, is your career fulfilling for you at this moment in time, right? Is it giving you the ability to go see new stuff? Um, or for me, is it giving me the ability to pay for my children's college education, right? Or Mariah's ability to hang out with her dogs and, spoil her puppies to no end. So, right, thinking about those things, this is what you're going to look for in a career that's going to work for you. So, we started talking a little bit too about, right, what's really important to you, as I was saying before. And when I think of what's really important to me, that's what I'm going to kind of figure out with my career. And when I start to kind of think about this, I usually start to put into the buckets of what do I need my career to be for me and what do I want it to be, right? Because what I need and what I want aren't always the exact same thing. And salary is the easiest one to figure this out, right? There's a salary that I need in order to sustain myself and live, right? To pay for my house over my head, to pay for the car in the garage, to feed the dogs on a regular basis, things like that, right? On the other hand, there are things I really want. I want to travel. I love to travel. I want to make sure that's part of our lives. I want to be able to, buy my nieces and nephews fun Christmas gifts. I want to be able to make donations to causes that are really important to me and support other people and bring other people up in life. Right. So as I think about those things, that's what I want. So what I need is a lower number from a salary, but what I want is a higher number. And it's kind of figuring out for yourself what's really important at this moment in time for you. Which ones of those buckets are the most important? And right, in an ideal world, you think about what's important to you and you find a job that works for all of them. And that doesn't work all the time for everybody, right? Right now, must say I am super lucky because I have a career that fits all of my wants and needs right now, right? I'm making the money that I want to save for my kids' college. If we could leave the house on a more regular basis, I would be traveling more because I set myself up with a career where I get to travel, right? I go to conferences and do keynote speakers, presentations. I go to corporations in different parts of the country and get to kind of work with teams there. So I made sure that those are part of my career and I can put this together. Um, so somebody's written, they don't know about me, but they love the staying home piece right now. You know, I've liked it more than I thought I would. I must admit, yoga pants are my friends, and right, I haven't had to put a suit on in a year almost at this point, which makes me happy. But I really do miss traveling, I will say. So thinking about those things that are important to you, right? And so I usually tell people to start making lists, right? Make a list of what do you need in a job and what do you want from your job? I need a job that, right, pays my bills. I want a job that allows me to save money and travel. So getting those in line kind of really helps. So the next kind of piece that I usually talk to people about when we're talking careers is trying to figure out what are the days that you are energized and what are the days that you come home from work completely drained, right? So energized. What are the days that you finish work and right now I go down a flight of stairs, right? I'm working over my garage. So, I go downstairs and I cook dinner and I want to play a game with the kids after dinner, or we want to take the dogs for a walk. Like I have energy and I want to do things. And then there are the days that I finish work and I just want to go sit on the couch and watch Netflix all night long. And when you're trying to figure out what might be a good next move for you, I recommend that you keep kind of a calendar or a notebook, something where you're writing down the days that you're drained versus the days that you're energized at the end of the day, and a little bit about what you did that day. So I think presentations like this, right? I am someone who loves this, right? It's why I do it as my career. Even better, stand me up in a room in front of 500 people or 1,000 people and let me give the keynote, right, to open or close your conference. Those are things that really get me energized and excited. Other people, when they present at a conference or go to a conference, right, being around all those people drains them completely. The last job I had a coworker who we partnered on a lot of things, and we partnered together on a presentation at a conference one time. And presentation was early afternoon. And then that evening, I called over to her room and said, "Hey, do you want to go out to dinner?" And she was like, "Absolutely not." She's like, "I'm already in my pajamas." It was like 5 o'clock. She's like, "I just want to order room service. I don't want to leave my room." And I was like, "Oh God, like I had such a great time today. I am like energized and can't wait to go out to dinner." And she was the person who, meeting all of those people during the course of a conference, exhausted her, right? She was completely exhausted from it. Whereas for me, it really energized me. So if she ever got a job where she had to meet new people every single day, or where she had to present in front of large groups every day, she would just be exhausted all of the time, right? Which is no way to live. So start to really look at, and sometimes in the beginning, this is hard, but it gets a little bit nuanced for folks, right? That, um, when you think about it, that at different points, that you will feel really energized from work, and other times you'll feel drained. Someone did just mention to me they're not seeing slides anymore, and yeah, that's fine. I actually pulled them down because I usually just put them up for the first few and then kind of talk to people through the rest of it. So, if you're kind of debating on what to do next, pull up, pull out a calendar, pull out a notebook, and just start to write, very quickly each day, energized or drained, and what you did. And after a couple of weeks, to kind of go back and look through them, or even have somebody else look through them for you if sometimes you have a hard time. Right? Sometimes we have blinders on for ourselves. So for me as a coach, it's easier for me sometimes to look through that than it is for the person who wrote it. So go through that and look and see, right? These are the days that I was really energized and excited, and these are the days where I was exhausted. So someone asked, what happens if you don't have a job right now? Well, absolutely. I think it's the same thing, right? Think about the different tasks you're doing during the day, and what are the things that energize you and what drains you. Um, if you find you're not doing much, try to force yourself to kind of mimic some things you might do for work. So maybe you um, go on to edX or Coursera and do a free class, or on LinkedIn. Maybe you do things like you rewrite your resume or your LinkedIn profile, right? Or you do the things that kind of simulate some of the work that you might do, and kind of look at it that way. The other thing you can do too is to kind of jog your memory and try to think back in time, right? When were the days that you were really energized and wanted to do stuff after work? And what were the days that you were exhausted? Um, so that would be kind of my suggestion if you're not currently working, to try to think through it that way. The other thing that I would tell you to kind of start to think of are, when are the times that you just totally lose track of time, right? What are the things that you're doing that you blink and all of a sudden, right, 4 hours has gone by? Or you start kind of sitting down to do something and all of a sudden it's midnight and you would have sworn it was like 8 p.m. Now, I will say that the pandemic has kind of shifted that a little for people. So I almost always want to put a caveat here to say, right, like binge watching an entire series on Netflix doesn't count as losing track of time for this particular reason, or doing like video games or something like that. So try to think about either work or life or volunteering that you've done, things like that, where you've lost track of time, right? What is a project that you had started working on that all of a sudden you blink, right? And the day's done. Thinking about that, right? Those are the times that you've had flow, right? And what's flow? Flow is that idea that a job was kind of challenging enough that it wasn't too challenging, right? It wasn't so stressful, and it made you bored. It was just challenging enough and grabbed your interest enough. So it's kind of that perfect moment where those things meet, of kind of the challenge and your interest. So try to think back to, when are the times that you just kind of were in the flow and things were going and you totally lost track of time. Now, that's when you start to kind of layer all these things, right? We start to look at, what are the things you want from a job? What are the things that are important to you in life? When are you energized from work? And, when do you lose track of time? And start putting the lens on those as to, what can we put together for a job for this? Now, some of that, right, is a little bit hard to figure out for folks. right? You possibly have no idea what jobs are out there. So some of the fun ways that I do this is I will start to do things like, so if you tell me, what some of the time that you lose track of time at work is when you're building, I don't know, Excel spreadsheets, right? I'll go into LinkedIn or Indeed or, some kind of job platform and just put that skill in there and say, okay, Excel spreadsheets, right? And let's see what comes up. Let's start looking at the people who, right, if you're doing it on LinkedIn, look at people on LinkedIn who have kind of named that as one of their skills. And that's the work that they're doing. So places like that you can look at to try to think of how can you kind of pivot some of these skills that you have into finding the right career for you at this moment in time. The other way is really truly what people have been saying for years, and I know it makes people a little bit more crazy with it, is the whole idea of networking. But when I talk to people about networking, what I love to tell them to do is instead of like, no, don't be out there calling people and say, can you hire me or give me a job? Instead, I want you to kind of really be curious. Find people and have conversations with them. Just be curious about what they do and ask them questions about what they do. Because then you'll start to kind of build that layer of all these people who kind of the interesting things that you do. I'm sorry, that they do. And those are the people who over time are going to reach out to you and say, hey, Mariah, I have this great job. Would you be interested in it? So that's how people really truly end up finding the jobs that they love more than anything, is when people reach out to them.
So, Colleen, while you were talking about that, I've given a talk very similar about that particular thing, the need to network. I go to boot camps and I talk about why these people, instead of looking for a job, they should just go to meetups. And find that, because meetups are a really good way, in my opinion, to find your little niche interest and find the people that like the things you like. And then that connection eventually evolves into a job. Like I know this works because I'm working at Weave because I went to a meetup, I saw I liked the meetup, I spoke at the meetup, and then Weave CTO was like, hey, you should come work for us. So it's all about finding that interest. I think if you have a common interest, networking becomes less pressure and more natural, and everything kind of comes from there.
Absolutely. That you're so right, Mariah. And truthfully, what I try to tell people more often than not, right, networking has this bad rap, right? People think of networking as like the used car salesman type thing, right? Or, this kind of financial planners of the world who show up to every single event and now hound you over and over again, right? So what you really have to think of networking as is connecting with people to build a group that are people helping each other, right? It's like building your tribe, and it's really kind of interacting with people. It doesn't have to feel like, right, like that it's this terrible, terrible, terrible fit, right? Or this stressful thing. So knowing that, really, one of the statements I always love to have people use is to connect with people and say something like, hey Mariah, I saw the work you do at Weave. I'm really curious about how you got there and what you're doing. It sounds really exciting, right? And kind of put it off that way.
For sure. 90% of the
Yeah.
time, that's what happens.
Absolutely, right? And that curiosity gets you so far. It's how I've been able to build my business. It always makes me laugh. I get at least an email a day from somebody on LinkedIn who says things like, right, I can help you attract, 10 $1,000 coaching clients a week. I'm like, I don't need to do that because I connect with people and I get out there and talk to people and I'm curious about what people do. And it just kind of comes natural over time. So let's see. One of the questions that just came in is, what if you have to remain in your current job for a while? So first, I'd kind of ask why. And I know, right, we may not get all into this here, but part of me is kind of helping people figure out, do they really have to remain in their job? Now, sometimes they have to, right? I worked with someone a couple of years ago who had what we always we kept referring to as the golden handcuffs, right? If they were at their job for about 8.5 years, they were kind of miserable, but if they made it to 10 years, they got like a $30,000 bonus, and they wanted to wait till that 10 years to get that $30,000 bonus. So in a case like that, what I try to help people think about is, okay, let's start giving you kind of a light at the end of the tunnel. So, what are some things that you can do to set yourself up for something, for the next great thing that you're going to get to do? So, maybe it's a new skill that you're going to learn. Maybe it's that you focus this next year on connecting with people, right? Networking, going to meetups, kind of building yourself up that way. Uh, Maybe it's right? Let's see. Right? Maybe you're the person who really likes to travel and kind of see new stuff. So you start deciding you're going to go to every conference in your industry that you can, right? Which puts you out there meeting new people and kind of building it up that way. The other thing is, I've worked with people too who, at their current job, they weren't really happy because of maybe a team that they were on or the actual skills that they were doing at that moment in time. And so, if that's the case, right, we can talk about, how do you propose to supervisors to change your position a little bit, maybe change your job title, maybe move internally within a company, right? Is there a way to do that? So, uh, I think there are many possibilities for folks, even when you feel like you're stuck and that you have to stay in a job, that there are other things that you can do. You know, when you think about that wheel of life that I showed you in the beginning, right? So if you think about that wheel of life, there's all those other areas of your life. So let's make sure that your career and your job isn't going to take over all the other areas, and thinking about, how can we put some effort into other things that will make your job not feel as kind of miserable or meh at this point in time, right? So I do think there are ways to kind of tweak your current job and your current job responsibilities quite often, in order to kind of make it something that will kind of be a better fit for you. Or, as I said, right, to start thinking about, what are the skills you could start building now in the job you currently have, that will allow you to make that next leap. And what I will say for folks, right, is that it's hard. Change is hard. Change is stressful. A lot of the folks that I work with, um, even if they really want a job, it's terrifying, the idea of leaving and changing. I've worked with a lot of folks who are teachers or lawyers or engineers, right? People who had like the very same job for like 20 years, but realized in their 40s, right? They've done a job for 20 something years. They can't do it for another 20 more before they retire, and they need to do something. So, really, what are some things you can do right now? I would say, start with the wheel of life. Start thinking about things that drain you and things that really kind of energize you. If you've never looked at the Clifton StrengthsFinder assessment by Gallup, I'd recommend you look at that. It is one of my favorite tools to help people kind of see the real positives they had. Um, and quite often I tell people, write a job description for the job that you really want, right? Write your kind of ultimate dream job description. And then, right, let's talk about, is there a way to kind of make that job description happen for you? Um, I am happy to connect with anybody on LinkedIn. You can find me, Colleen DelVecchio. Um, right, you can email me. When we get to the Google Meet in a few minutes, I will make sure to kind of have all that information there as well. But I'm happy to have conversations with folks, and kind of be able to connect with you there as well. Um, let's see, we have a couple more minutes here. No, do folks have any specific questions they'd like, or?
Yeah, any more questions? I'm going to go ahead. So the link for the Google Meet, which is a video call, anyone can join on. It's not going to be recorded. It's supposed to be totally casual way to just hang out and chat. The link is on the meetup page for tonight. And I'm throwing the link to the meetup page in the chat. Just because I felt weird about throwing the link directly. I don't know why. But yeah, everyone's invited. Come hang out. I'll keep it open as long as people are there. No pressure to stay, no pressure to leave. Just, come and hang out. And I just wanted to say, Colleen, this was awesome. Like, I did not know what to expect coming into it, and this was just an amazing talk. I'm super glad you were able to come spend this time with us and share your insights. Like, I learned a lot. I'm super happy with my job, but I still learned a lot.
Excellent. I'm glad you're happy with your job. Those are the best people. Right. And, stay in touch, everyone, right? Feel free to connect. And I'm, like I said, happy to kind of keep the conversation going.
Cool. Well, with that, yeah, we'll go ahead. Let's go ahead. We'll end the broadcast. And like I said, the link's in the chat, so feel free to hop on over and talk with us, ask any more questions, and we will have another meetup for you next month. Keep an eye out on the meetup page, and I will announce that shortly. So,
great. Well,
bye,
see you all
guys.
in the meetup. Bye.